A few of you may have heard by now we're having an auction in Texas, Bedford, Texas. Our inaugural premier auction will be held there in December. And what better way to kick it off than a great collection of Texas Lawman guns. These are the guns of Jess Sweetin. Jess Sweetin was a legendary Texas lawman who started his career in 1931 as a deputy in Henderson County, Texas. Some stories say that the sheriff at the time wasn't a huge fan of Sweetin, probably because he was known for getting in fights. Some citizens say he got in 20 different fights on his first day on the job. Regardless of his disagreements with the sheriff, things worked out for Mr. Sweetin. The next year, he ran for sheriff of the county himself, and he won, becoming the youngest sheriff in Texas at the time. He was 27 years old. 2 years after being elected sheriff, Sweetin outshot every other sheriff in the state of Texas, winning a belt buckle along with other accolades. He was a big man, standing 6'4". He struck an intimidating figure and was just as big in character. There's multiple books written about his law enforcement career, and that really only scratches the surface. He was in multiple gunfights throughout his career, stating himself that he shot 9 different men, 3 of which died. The 3 long guns we have here were carried by Sweetin during different times in his career. These 3 are not specifically documented in gunfights, but the way he writes about them, they were certainly there, whether it was in his car or being carried by him. The Model 94 and the 97 shotgun were with him for a lot of his career. He had these early on. The Remington came a little bit later, but he still mentions carrying it with him while on duty in his car all the time. So these guns were there with Sweetin while he was creating this mythical career in law enforcement. The Model 94 here is one of the most popular guns of the period. It's chambered in .30-30. It's really one of the guns that people think of when they think of Texas. Along with the single action Army, you have a Winchester lever action. The Winchester Model 1897 here is in 12 gauge, and as many of you firearms enthusiasts know, a shotgun is an incredible defensive piece to have, which makes sense for a lawman. This one, you can tell, was carried and used a lot. It has, a period chrome, more durable finish that Sweetin probably chose to have on it himself. It really shows the character of a lawman shotgun. And the Remington rifle here is basically would have just been an updated version of his 94, that you're seeing the evolution of firearms along with the evolution of his law enforcement career. Here in the center, we have Sweetin's Single Action Army, which was probably his earliest sidearm, and it's really the quintessential Texas lawman sidearm. This example is fitted with carved steer head grips. It really gives it that Texas feel. And Sweetin himself documents that gun being in a gunfight where he had chased down a bank robber and cornered him in a house. And Sweetin himself says that 2 shots were fired in that gunfight. The burglar fired one and Sweetin fired one. He hit him in the leg. The burglar survived but was apprehended. It's not only the revolver that has a Texas feel, it comes with a tooled leather holster that was made by Bedell Rogers in Longview, Texas. It just doesn't get any better than that for Texas law enforcement guns. Besides being legendary in law enforcement, Sweetin was also an incredible target shooter. He did exhibitions all over the country, and this Colt Officer's Model target was one of the guns he carried. He documents this gun as having an estimated 300,000 rounds fired through it throughout his exhibition career. It's documented as having work done by Colt because he was using it so much. It needed the work to keep going. As you can see, that Colt is outfitted with target grips and chambered in .38 Special. It would have been an incredible target revolver. Now, Sweeten is documented in multiple sources as preferring to carry 2 handguns, as you can see with these next guns. These two 44 hand ejectors in the front, they both show matching period modifications that you can only guess were preferred by Sweeten for his carry guns. Each of these guns was in a gunfight that is documented by the man himself. The first of the 44s was in 2 different gunfights, one of which Sweeten mentions that a man broke into the jail and beat up the cook. He then tracked down the assailant and a gunfight ensued, and he states that he shot him 6 times and he dropped where he stood. The second gunfight that the revolver was in, he just mentions briefly, and then it was a guard at a dice game who fired at him, and he returned fire and the guard dropped where he stood. The other Smith & Wesson 44 was involved in what is probably Sweeten's most famous gunfight, and that was with an outlaw known as the Texas Kid. This took place in 1943. The Texas Kid had fled to Louisiana after escaping prison multiple times. He had been sentenced to death multiple times. But at the time, he was hiding out in Louisiana and returning across the border to Texas, hijacking vehicles. Anyway, one day the Texas Kid hijacked a vehicle and took a used car salesman hostage. Sweeten got wind of this, headed him off, chased him down. At one point, he pulled his car up next to that of the Texas Kid, who fired at him. Multi-county high-speed chase ensued. The chase and the Texas Kid's reign of terror eventually ended with Sweeten saying he hit him with 1 shot through the heart. You really can't make this stuff up. But all of these stories are documented by Sweeten himself with the guns. The last 2 of Jess Sweeten's guns we have here are a pair of Colt government model national match pistols that would have been highly valued by somebody who cared a lot about accuracy. They have the national match adjustable rear sight. These 2 guns show similar period modifications to the 44 Smith & Wessons, as you can see, and they're both fitted with a beautiful pair of engraved silver-plated grips that have rose gold accents, and all of the accents are symbols that have to do with Sweeten's life as well as his name. Now, after hearing about all these guns, I'm sure you will be shocked to hear that these 2 guns were also involved in gunfights. The first one was involved in a gunfight with a burglar in the Fort Worth area who fired at Sweeten, and he returned fire, as he seems to have done a lot, and accurately and successfully. The other of these national match pistols is noted as being involved in 2 gunfights, one of which was with a man barricaded in a house with a 44-40 rifle. Sweeten notes that he kicked in the door and the man was standing about 15 feet away from him when he shouldered his rifle, and Sweeten fired. The other incident was a gunfight involving 2 criminals against Sweeten, and Sweeten again returned fire, as he seems to have done quite often. And the 2 criminals were apprehended at the doctor's office the next morning, so I'll let you guess what happened. But most of these stories, they're larger than life and are packed full of details that we could not possibly fit into one video. So I highly encourage you to check out the descriptions on all of these guns and go do some research on Jess Sweeten yourselves. The man's story is as large as Texas. Jess Sweeten is just one of the incredible larger-than-life characters that is well represented in our December auction, from Western heroes to infamous outlaws, and all of these guns will be available to you in our December premier firearms auction, which will be held in Bedford, Texas.